What is the purpose of my channel? The reason why my channel is called Inner Beast is twofold. One, I want you to understand, especially as a man, it may be different as a woman because I don't know what it's like to be a woman, but as a man, you are going to have to face demons that you have inside. You are going to have to overcome them. You are going to have to defeat them, conquer them, tame them, whatever it takes. You have to release your inner beast on the things that you have plaguing you from internally. So whatever your demons are that you're facing inside, you're going to have to be the one that faces them. This is an internal battle, therefore inner beast. The second reason why I call it inner beast, I want you to understand that regardless of how much of your life you fucked up, regardless of what opportunities you've squandered, regardless of how deep of a hole you've dug in your life, regardless of how many and the types of mistakes you've made in your life, you can come back from them. Now, other people may feel differently about you. And some people, because second chances are not real. Second chances only exist if you take and make a second chance for yourself. You fuck up a bunch of things in your life and then you create a legacy afterwards. People will be like, oh, he did such a good job. But even then, some people will hate. My point is, as a man, you're gonna have to face demons inside. And I want you to know that most likely, no matter who you are, you're gonna make mistakes. And regardless of how big those mistakes seem at the time, and regardless of how serious the consequences of those mistakes may be, or how long they may last, you can always come back from them. And I know this for a fact because I've been on both ends of the spectrum from this. I grew up in a gang-infested neighborhood and definitely became part of the street and gang life myself. I was a gang member, I sold drugs, I shot people, I stabbed people. I went to prison the first time for shooting people. I have been to prison twice, not just once. So I came from an area where I was in a leadership position from a very young age. From the age of 13, I was in leadership positions. So in my street life. So I believe that I was fortunate to have to go through those at such a young age because it forced me to go through some of the things that many men will go through. I think probably almost all men will go through, but I had to go through them through a younger age. So certain things like, feeling like you're inconsequential, you're not strong enough, you're not making the right decisions, all of the things that come from inside from not knowing like who you are, what you're capable of, and if you can withstand the outside pressures that are forcing themselves against you and your life. Not only did I have to worry about myself, I had people in my life that I was responsible for and that I loved and cared for. That every one of my decisions had a massive impact, not just on me, but the people around me. And I made some bad decisions. Now, some decisions that I made that I consider bad, you guys wouldn't probably consider bad. A lot of the decisions that I consider good, many of you people would consider bad. I shot and stabbed people. I beat people to a pulp many, many, many times in my life. I was responsible for, directly and by giving orders, I was responsible for a lot of violence. That being said, the way that I saw it and even still view it is at the time I was fighting for enough space to breathe. I was fighting for enough space to survive. And not just for me, but also for the people that I was involved with. So I had to face the earlier things that most men go through, which is, like I said, fear of being not enough in different ways. There's many different ways that all men feel it, but that's the basic premise of it. I had to get over that pretty quick because I had to make decisions, and a lot of times those decisions had consequences in real time. So I had to worry about consequences in real time, not consequences that would have lasting effects over time. Then eventually I ended up going to prison at a very young age. So as soon as I turned 18, I caught a case for shooting people. And I tried to kill everybody in a car. And I had just turned 18. And so I fought the case for 2 years, and which doesn't mean exactly what people think it means, but I was out for 2 years while it just kept getting set over until finally I took a plea deal. So I had just turned 20 years old and I went to prison. When I get to prison, I realized that it wasn't even when I got to prison. To be honest, when I caught the case and I understood the gravity, and I'm only 18 years old. And regardless of how people think, when you do something heinous, when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, all the way up to 25, people will have this idea of you being fully capable of understanding what you're doing and what's going on. You don't. I couldn't even understand the things that they were presenting me with. My judge told me one time that he was personally guaranteeing that I would not receive less than 240 years in his Department of Correction. I am 18 years old. I do not have a concept of what 240 years means. I didn't even fully it. I couldn't even process it to the point of where I was like, I'm gonna die in prison. I had the process of where like I was just gonna continue to grow old. I remember having these thoughts in my head. I was just gonna continue to grow old forever in prison. I didn't even understand the concept that that's where I was gonna die at 240 years. Didn't even make, that's how you do not have a full understanding of what you're doing. But that's not my point. And I'm not trying to escape. I'm not trying to cause blame or anything like that. I'm just saying that you don't have a concept for things. So I kind of understood the 240 years thing, right? I kind of got it. But in my mind, like I said, I was just going to grow old forever. It wasn't even the concept of me dying. There was no thought process of that happening, of me like finally keeling over, being carted out of prison in a cardboard box or whatever, and then taken directly to my grave. That part never even fucking really clicked. I just thought of constantly growing old in prison. So at that time, I was like, ooh, that sounds serious. That sounds real. Now, that didn't change all of my behavior, but it did make a dent in my behavior. That is true. I'm not going to lie about that. And so I started changing a lot of the ways that I did things. Now, luckily, there's two parts to this. One, at that time, if they would have let me go, if they would have not sent me to prison, I did change monumentally from that point until they sent me to prison. So I realized, okay, wait, this is not the correct game. This is not how I want this to play out. This is not how I want my life to play out. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't have a concept of what a good life was or how to attack life in a manner of giving me the real life that I wanted. Not the incentives that I was chasing, because we all operate based off of incentives. So it doesn't matter who you are. You want to know why people in the hood sell drugs? They're incentivized to sell drugs. If you get a job for, what's minimum wage? Especially way back then. $7 an hour, $10 an hour, $12 an hour, whatever it is now, you can fucking just apply it then to then, and it's still not enough. You're not going to be making enough money, especially as a young man trying to figure out how he's not only going to take care of himself, but his family, and try to get his family out of the situation that's in. Because I started giving my mom money at a very young age. I wasn't just going to leave my mom there while I took off. You know what I mean? That's not how it works. My point is, we all operate off of incentives. So I was chasing what I thought the incentives were that I wanted. I didn't have a concept yet of the life that was possible outside of everything that I was doing. So if they would have let me go, I wasn't going to be, I had let go of my violent tendencies at that point. Like I had already done that. I'd already realized and I just wasn't putting myself in those positions. However, I wasn't doing all the right things. I was still chasing the incentives that I understood. So money, we just could leave it at that. Everything that comes with money. So I was still selling a lot of drugs. I was throwing a lot of raves. I was doing all of that stuff, but I hadn't changed completely. I go to prison at 20. When I go to prison at 20, I realized real fast, I hadn't even made it to prison yet. I was still in county jail. I realized real fast that sharpness, that violent edge that I had was no longer going to be allowed to just sit in my back pocket. Nope, it had to come out and be in my hand at all points in time, because at no point was my safety, just like when I was young, at no point was my safety or the people that I was with, was it ever up for debate. There was no debate about it. I was gonna move through this world safely, and so are the people with me. And if that required me to move over you in a violent fashion, I was going to do it, and I did do it. So I get back to county jail and I realized, well, first of all, so people know who I am. I had a reputation, so it wasn't like I just was gonna walk in there as a nobody. But I realized real fast, my safety cannot be up for debate, just like it wasn't when I was younger. And I pulled that sharp edge of violence right back out, sharpened it even further. And I moved through my next 5 years of life, which was behind bars in the penitentiary. And I moved through life in a manner that befitted that my safety is not up for debate. Now, the thing is prison is very simple. You do not have to even win a fight. Now, I won mine, but you do not have to win a fight. All you got to do is prove that you will fight, and you're going to be probably fine. If you fight once, you're probably going to be good. If the first time it comes, you don't back down and you just take, even if you get your ass kicked, you just take the ass kicking, you'll probably be fine. If you get in 2 fights, if you show that you're not going to back down twice, and even you get your ass handed to you both times, people are just going to leave you alone. Prison isn't as It's not exactly like people think. They go after the weakest, not just the weak. If you prove that you will fight, you'll be fine, which means you don't have to win, which means you're going to get through your time just fine. Now, I was the opposite. I was taking shit straight to other people. They said anything. I would either take flight right then and there, or I'm going to come see them before they can come see me. So when we get back to wherever we are, or whatever's going on, I went straight to their room, or I went straight to their area, or I went, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? And I just handled it like that. Now, the good part about that is, whether you want to look at it as this or not, but the good part about that is after a couple of years, I was, man, I didn't really, there was no more issues unless they were of a monumental nature, like unless the yard was about to get into it, like one faction versus another faction or something serious like that, I very rarely had any issues after that. So that gave me time to start working on myself. And so I started doing, I've always wrote a lot in my life, and I started doing a lot of reading and a lot of writing, and I started doing a lot of interior development. Now, I had to hit rock bottom, or what I thought at the time was rock bottom. I was not correct yet. But I had hit a low point in my life. So I was able to realize, hey, I have to do something about myself. So I started doing reading, writing, everything that I could, talking to different people that I started recognizing like different people had different levels of conversation. And depending on who I spoke with and how I spoke to them would depend on how you could get the conversation out of them. And it's not even all the time. Like you can have somebody who's extremely smart, but if you only bring stupid conversations to them, they will talk to you about the stupid shit. They don't have a problem with that. They can have a conversation about both. So I started realizing that I had to upgrade like the type of conversations that I had and with whom that I had them. So I started developing myself, and I started going through all those things, these interior things. So not only the ones that I solved when I was a teenager and I was going through life in a violent fashion, those weren't like actually thought out. Those were just things that I had to overcome. So, a fear of inadequacy is something you just have to overcome because you can't think about it anymore. So I didn't have those kinds of fears anymore, but I did have to still understand like why I ever thought myself was inadequate. I just overcame the issue of inadequacy, for instance. Or like the setbacks of inadequacy. I never really thought about what I thought about myself as a person. That didn't happen until I went to prison. So I had to start thinking about stuff like that. And I got lucky and I met some people that were really able to shine a light on a few things. I was able to shine a light on a few things myself, and I was able to read books that help shine lights on different things. And I had to work through my inner demons in a lot of ways. The problem was I didn't do it completely and fully. So when I got let out, 5 years later, and I can tell you right now, as someone who's been to prison twice, when you're released, in your heart when you're really done. And when I was released, I knew for sure that I wasn't done. Because I would have certain thoughts about like when I go back to prison. I would have those thoughts because I knew I wasn't completely done. Now, I did okay in the beginning. Several people came to visit me. One came literally the day after I got out. One person showed up at my place the day after I got out, and I told no one I was getting out. And this was a guy that I was connected to before I went to prison, and I made a lot of money for and with. And right away, second day, I'd been out literally the next day. I don't even know if it hadn't even been 24. It hadn't even been 24 hours yet, I don't think. And he was like, man, if you need to get put on, just let me know. I'll do this, and this for you. I'm cool. Thank you. I appreciate the offer, but no, I'm good. So he's like, all right, man, but if you change your mind, you let me know, da-da-da-da. So then 3 days after I got out, the only guy that I've ever considered, quote unquote, my boss, he came by. And of course, us having a better relationship and a deeper relationship, and me having done a lot more things for and with him, he offered me, a monumental deal. Like just, I'll give you all of this and you just take your time and you could give it back to me for this price, which was basically cost to him. And he was like, and you just take your time figuring it out. Because the first thing I told both of them was, I don't have clientele. I couldn't even if I wanted to move this stuff, I couldn't. I don't have clientele. And this isn't the fucking 90s, and this isn't California. I was no longer in California. So it wasn't like you could just fucking go sit on the block and slang shit, which I never did anyways. I've only done that twice. I was never a crack dealer. I sold designer drugs and powder. So I declined both. The second deal, most people would have felt in their mind was coming from where I come from. The second deal especially, boy, you just take that fucking deal and you just work it out as you go. But no, I declined. Just did well. Got involved with a couple legal businesses. We did what we could. So life is moving forward. I had worked on quite a few things. Now I was no longer just a violent individual. I was strategically violent. I chose when I should be violent rather than just being violent all the time. So it wasn't like I had just solved all of those issues, because I hadn't. I had just learned to be strategic, like I said. Anyways, a little bit of time goes on, hit some speed bumps along the way, couple barriers, couple roadblocks. Boom, I call dude and I'm like, hey, let's figure something out. I need to get my life put back together, because I can't live at the bottom. I can't do this. I got a reputation to uphold. I got the way that I think about myself. I have my own image to myself to uphold. So I go get back into the game. I just wasn't living a good life. I really wasn't. I wasn't treating the people around me the way I should have, and I just wasn't doing the things that I knew I should be doing. Somewhere, somehow, in the back of my mind, I had this idea that like I could take care of all that later. I just had to get out of where I was at the time, and I could take care of that later. So I ended up back in prison. When I get to prison the second time, I'm sitting in the county jail. I had just been arrested, and I'm sitting there. And next is my sentencing, because I had gone on the run. So I'm not getting back out now. The next thing happens is I get sentenced, and I get sentenced to a life sentence. And if you're curious about all that, the channel, it's on the channel. I don't got nothing to hide, but that's not the purpose of this situation at this time. So I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting there. Actually, a homeboy got arrested with me. He just had a different case, but we got hit together. So we're sitting there next to each other, man, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, man, how in the fuck did I find myself here again? And I realized, like, okay, no, this is 100% on me, and I need to figure this out. Now, a lot of people feel that I got screwed when I went to prison the second time. Lots of people feel that way. My thought process the entire time was always the same. I got lucky. And nobody else saw it that way, but I felt like I got lucky. I knew that I wasn't going to die in prison. Now, this time I have a concept of dying in prison. This time I do. I'm 29 years old. So I have a concept of dying in prison now. Not just because I'm older, but also because I've been through the experience. And I've seen some old motherfuckers in prison that have been in prison their whole lives, and I've seen people die in prison. Both, through violent measures, and people just fucking living to the end of their life in prison. So now I have a concept of it. And I just knew. I knew in my heart, and I was like, I'm not gonna die in prison. It won't happen. This isn't the end for me. I know it's not. So even though everybody kept telling me that I was going to die in prison, I just knew that I wasn't. And so I felt lucky that I went to prison for something that I knew I was going to get out from under. Because had I kept living the life that I was living, I was going to end up in prison for something that I was not going to be able to get out from under. So I actually was fucking lucky. All right, so if we're sitting here and we're realizing that it's completely me, 100% me. I found myself here the first time because of me. I found myself here the second time because of me. We have to work these things out. Now, at this point, I start really, really, really going inside and taking parts of myself and just pulling them apart. Why do I do this? Why do I think this? Why do I feel this? Why do I believe this? Why do I act this way? Why is that important to me? Why is this not important to me? Why do I say this is important to me, but I don't act like it ever? These are the incentives that I chase. These are the things that I say that are important, yet they're diametrically opposite, and I'm going after the incentives, and I'm not going after the things that I'm saying that are important. Sometimes there's some overlap, and that's great when it does, but when it doesn't, I'm just going after the incentives. So why am I like that? So I really had to figure these things out. So I got lucky, and some laws changed and stuff like that, and so I ended up getting out of prison. So as I knew that I would, I never felt that was the end of my story. What I did feel, however, though, is that I needed to make sure that I made sure that I knew, or I needed to make sure that the world, God, the universe, whatever you prescribe to, whatever your thought process on it is, I needed to prove to the universe and to God that I was worth letting out. That's how I undertook it the next 13 years. I was in prison for 5 years the first time, got out, I was out for 4, and then I went to prison for 13 years. And I knew in my mind that I had to prove that I was worth letting to go free and go back into the world. Man, so I changed myself dramatically from top to bottom. Everything about me, and I attacked everything. And I learned a lot of things. There's a few things that I learned. One, whatever your beliefs are, they're not really yours. They were given to you. So you have to always constantly figure out, like, whatever you think that you believe, why do you believe it? And like really get down to the basics of like, why do you believe it? What is it inside? And if you do not have a solid fucking answer, and I mean a solid answer, and this is probably going to upset plenty of people, but I'm going to use religion as an example. If you, whatever religion you are, I don't have to name one, whatever religion you are, why are you that religion? Because if you're a religion that is in alignment with the demographic that you grew up in, what are the odds that you chose to be that and you weren't just assimilated through media, environments, everything around you? So, because if you're, let's say you're a Christian here in America, if you're a Christian here in America, how certain are you that you wouldn't be a Muslim if you had grown up over in Saudi Arabia? Because the odds are extremely high that if you grow up in one, you're going to be one thing. And so it doesn't mean that your beliefs are quote unquote wrong necessarily. You just need to really fucking get down to the reasons why you believe everything that you believe. So that was one of the things. And so once I started realizing that my beliefs were not mine, I started being able to like tease apart different things of why I thought certain things were important and why I chased certain things. But another part, so I worked on myself. That was one of the things that I did. Another thing that I did is I proved that I had to have a purpose. And my purpose, your purpose is partly to develop yourself. 100%. You should be making yourself into the best person that you can be on this planet, 100%. But that should only be a part of it. Another thing is, what are you going to leave as a lasting impact that you imprint? What thumbprint, what fingerprint are you going to leave on the world itself? That's another part of your purpose, especially as a man. Perhaps it's different for women. I don't know, but especially as a man, what is the impact that you're going to leave? What is the thumbprint that you're going to leave on this planet? And what is your legacy going to be? So I started working on that as well. And I worked on it the whole time I was in. And we can get in that, we'll get into that another time too. But basically I created my own IP. To be honest, actually right here, guys, this is all me. I created my own IP. And so I've been working on it since I got out. So my point of all of this, what is the reason for my channel? The reason for my channel is because I've had to do everything that I talk about on this channel. Now, I talk about a wide variety of things, and some people would call it the manosphere shit, but it is true. As a man, you should be a man. You should have a masculine fucking frame. There are plenty of things that as a man, you should be able to do. You should be able to defend yourself. You should be able to defend the ones that you love. You should be able to run, lift weights, swim, shoot guns, box, or fight in any shape, way, form, or fashion, just something. You should be able to work your fucking ass off. As a man, your job is to provide. You should be able to work your ass off. If you've got to do it, you should be able to work fucking 3 jobs a day if that's what's necessary. If it's not necessary, you have one good job, then that's not my point. My point is if everything went to hell, if you have a job that pays you $250,000 a year and everything is fine, you got wife, you got kids, everything is hunky-dory, but you lost that job, as a man, you should have it inside of you to be able to go get a new fucking job, even if it's for minimum wage, and then 2 side hustles to make sure that your family is taken care of. As a man, there's just certain things that you should be able to do, and that is a fact, and you need to absorb that. You need to take that in. Forget the fact that not everyone absorbs it the same way. So you got people like fucking Wes Watson, who I've only seen a couple things of. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know his content, but I do know he yells and screams a lot, and I think threatens people. You don't respond to that, that's fine. But at the same time, and find somebody that you can respond to, but at the same time, you should understand that most of the things that they talk about in the manosphere are things that as a man, you should be adopting. All that bullshit about like, there's no genders and there's no, I don't know. I don't understand all that shit. But it isn't true because as a man, you have certain duties and you need to fulfill those duties. And a woman is only gonna value you for the duties that you can perform and how well you perform them. Stop fucking crying that women only want winners, just become a winner. Now, so I talk about the manosphere stuff. I talk about business in and out. You know, like, I don't tell you how to like structure your fucking contracts or anything like that. But I do tell you like some of the lessons, the rules, and the concepts that I understand. I have both sold drugs in the streets, and I understand that people think selling drugs is simple. Most people fail at selling drugs. They either never scale, they get robbed, they spend all the money, they do all the drugs, they get murdered. There's a lot of reasons that most people never make it off of the bottom. I didn't sell crack on the street. I got off the bottom each time I had to get in. I was not on the bottom ever, really. But even when I had to start at a lower fucking tier, I raised myself up fucking quick. You do have to be good at business in order to be good at selling drugs. Plain and simple.